Hi everyone, it's me, Taehyung. Before I start, I just want to say thank you for being here and thank you for listening to my story with an open heart. I know many of you have been with me for years, and some of you might be hearing my voice for the first time, but either way, I'm grateful. You're giving me something I don't take for granted, your time. I've always believed that time is the most precious thing someone can give because once it's gone, it never comes back. So if you're here with me right now, it really means a lot. I want you to relax, take a breath, and stay with me. This isn't just a story about fame or headlines or the entertainment industry. This is a story about being human, about being confused, being hurt, being scared, and trying to find yourself again. If you've ever felt like you weren't good enough, if you've ever doubted your own worth, if you've ever felt like you had to hide your feelings just to be accepted, then maybe you'll understand me a little more after this. I'm not here to act strong. I'm here to be honest. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for believing in me. And thank you for allowing me to speak in my own voice. Everything I'm about to share isn't for drama or attention or shock value. It's my truth, and sometimes the truth is messy, uncomfortable, and emotional, but it's real. And that's what matters the most to me now, being real. So, wherever you are right now, whether you're watching this alone, with friends, or with someone you love, I want you to know something before we begin. You are not alone. We all struggle. We all break. We all fight silent battles that nobody knows about. But pain doesn't make you weak, it means you're alive. And sharing my story is my way of reminding myself and maybe reminding you too that healing is possible and that we deserve to be happy. Thank you for listening. Let's begin. I never expected that night to turn into one of the hardest moments of my life. I walked onto Jimmy Fallon's stage thinking it would be fun. You know, just laughing, telling harmless stories, talking about music and the tour. I was smiling, greeting the audience, waving like everything was normal. But inside, I knew I was hiding something. I had a letter folded in my pocket, and I had been trying to pretend I didn't. A letter that I had read 100 times and still wasn't ready to read again. A letter from Jungkook, his final words to me after our fight. Jimmy was joking about something, the crowd was laughing, and I kept smiling because that was the only thing I knew how to do. But while everyone else was laughing, my mind kept replaying that night, the argument, the things we said, the things we didn't mean, the door closing too hard, the silence after. I thought I had moved on. I thought I had healed. But when someone you care about writes a final message, it doesn't leave you just because time passes. Jimmy asked question about the members, something simple, something I normally would answer easily, but instead I froze. I could feel the letter through the fabric of my jacket, like it was burning through. There was a moment where I forgot there was an audience. I forgot there were cameras. I forgot I was supposed to be Taehyung, the idol, the public figure who laughs no matter what. I was just a person trying not to break. I laughed awkwardly and said, yeah. And everyone laughed again. They didn't realize that the smile on my face was the only thing keeping my emotions from spilling over. Jimmy tilted his head and looked at me differently, not like a comedian looking for the next punchline, but like a friend who sensed something was wrong. He asked again, softer this time, "Are you okay, Tai? You can say anything here?" That was the moment I felt the air change in the studio. The laughter slowed. The tension rose. I don't know why, but my hand moved to my pocket. I didn't plan to. I didn't even think. I just pulled out the letter. The crowd reacted like they were curious, maybe expecting something funny, maybe expecting some sweet memory. Jimmy leaned in too, smiling like he was ready for a cute BTS story. Nobody was prepared for what I was about to say, not even me. I held the letter in my hands, and suddenly I wasn't sitting on that couch anymore. I was back in our dorm, back in the practice room, back in every moment where Jungkook was by my side. All the memories hit me at once. Every inside joke, every late night conversation, every high and every low we went through together. And also the fight. The biggest fight we ever had. The one that left both of us hurting more than we admitted. My voice shook even before I spoke. This is the last letter Jungkook wrote to me after we fought. The room went silent immediately. No whispers, no movement, even Jimmy froze. You could hear the cameras zooming in. Every eye in that studio was on me, and for the first time in my career, I didn't care about how I looked. I didn't care about being strong. I didn't care about maintaining the image of a perfect idol. I just wanted people to understand. I said, I haven't read this out loud before. My hands were shaking, my heart was beating too fast. I took a breath and I was already on the verge of breaking. I could hear someone in the audience gasp softly. It didn't matter. Nothing mattered except the words on the paper and the memories attached to them. When I opened the letter, the paper made a soft sound, but it was loud enough to echo in that silent studio. I swallowed hard. I could feel Jimmy watching me, ready to stop everything if I needed him to. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. I owed it to Jungkook. I owed it to myself. I read the first sentence. Hyung, I'm sorry. My voice cracked the moment the words left my lips. And just like that, the entire studio stopped laughing. The audience wasn't moving. Not one phone was recording. People were in disbelief, trying to understand what was happening. Jimmy lowered his card and put it on the table slowly. His whole expression shifted from show host to someone genuinely worried. I kept reading because if I stopped, I knew I wouldn't have the courage to start again. The lights felt too bright. The studio felt too quiet. I was fighting myself, fighting the tremble in my chin, the sting behind my eyes, the weight in my chest. I didn't want to cry on live television. I didn't want to look weak. But that letter was everything I had left from the person who knew me the most. I reached the part where Jungkook wrote, I never meant to hurt you. I just wanted you to know how much I cared. My voice disappeared. Not because I didn't want to speak, but because I literally couldn't. The words got stuck in my throat. I looked up and the crowd wasn't staring like an audience anymore. They were staring like humans, like people who understood pain. That was the first time I realized that sometimes you don't break because you're fragile. You break because the memories were too strong. And I wasn't ready for what came next in that letter. I stared at the letter, but I couldn't bring myself to read the next line right away. My hands were shaking so badly that the paper rustled in the microphone. I could hear the sound echo across the studio, raw, tense, impossible to hide. Jimmy leaned forward slightly, like he wanted to reach out and help, but he didn't. He understood the weight of the moment, and he let me take my time. That silence, it was heavy. Too heavy. When I finally spoke again, my voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded smaller, fragile, like the voice of someone who wasn't completely fine. He wrote, "You don't know how much I look up to you." The instant the words came out, there was this wave, not a physical sound, but an emotional hit that passed through the room. People in the audience shifted in their seats, but not because they were uncomfortable. It was because they understood something was deeper here than a celebrity story. I kept reading, even though every sentence felt like stabbing an old wound. Even when we argued, even when I said the wrong things, it was because I cared too much. I didn't know how to say it, so I made everything harder instead. I blinked hard to stop the tears from forming, but one escaped anyway, sliding down my cheek before I could wipe it. Normally, I would pretend it was nothing. This time, I didn't. I just let it fall. You could hear a pin drop. This was the same studio that usually screams, laughs, claps, reacts loudly to every joke or surprise. But now it felt like the whole world was holding its breath. This wasn't a performance anymore, it was real, and everyone knew it. The letter continued, and I hesitated before saying the next part. My lips trembled as I whispered, "I know I say I'm not scared of anything, but I'm scared of losing you, Hyung." I broke, not with sobbing, not with chaos, but with complete, honest vulnerability. My head lowered, and I swallowed a breath that hurt more than anything. Jimmy finally moved, gently placing his hand on my shoulder, not saying a word. It was exactly what I needed. Not comfort, not pity, just presence. A reminder that I wasn't alone even if I felt like I was. I tried to keep reading, even though every word was getting heavier. If this letter is the last thing you hear from me, I just hope you remember that you mean more to me than any fight ever did. The audience shifted again, and I could hear someone sniffle quietly. People came to watch a fun interview. They didn't expect to watch someone expose the most vulnerable corner of their heart on national television. Then Jimmy asked softly, "Tai, when did he write that?" His voice was careful, cautious, like he didn't want to break me more. I took a shaky breath and answered, "The same night we fought." The crowd gasped, not dramatically, but because they understood what that meant. Jungkook wrote the letter before either of us even had a chance to fix things. Before either of us apologized. Before either of us knew if the friendship had survived. I tilted my head back slightly, staring at the ceiling lights, because if I looked at anyone, I would lose control completely. I said I didn't read it until days later because I was scared of what it would say. I thought it would make me feel worse. The irony was painful. The letter didn't make me feel worse. It made me realize how wrong I had been, how blinded we both were by emotions we didn't know how to express. Jimmy took a deep breath and said, "Friendships are complicated, especially when you care that deeply." I nodded, but I didn't trust myself to speak yet. I traced the edge of the letter with my thumb, almost like I was afraid it might disappear if I didn't hold on. "We always understood each other without talking," I said quietly. But that night, we talked without understanding. A single soft laugh escaped me, not because anything was funny, but because pain sometimes comes out that way. We're grown up, we're professionals, but sometimes we're just kids who don't know how to handle everything. The audience reacted to that not with noise, but with silence that felt emotional, almost protective. Then I looked up again and said something I had never planned to say on television. I spent so many years trying to be strong for everyone that I forgot that I'm allowed to break too. That sentence hit the studio like thunder. Not a single camera moved. Not a single person blinked. I wasn't just reading a letter anymore, I was confessing. I took a breath and continued the letter. I hope one day we can talk without anger and remember why we chose each other in the first place. When I finished that line, I knew what came next in the letter, the hardest part. The part I had avoided for months. My hands started shaking again, and the edges of the paper crumpled slightly under my grip. Jimmy noticed and whispered, "You don't have to read the rest if it hurts too much." But he didn't take the letter away. He didn't try to protect the show. He protected me. I shook my head gently, wiping my face with the back of my hand. No, I have to. I've been running from this for too long. And then I read the line that destroyed me the most. Even if you decide you don't want me in your life anymore, I'll always be cheering for you from wherever you are. The audience reacted without thinking, a soft, collective sound of heartbreak. Not dramatic, not exaggerated, just real empathy. My heart dropped, my breathing got harder. I clenched the letter to my chest and whispered. I didn't know he felt that way until it was already too late. Jimmy spoke quietly. Did you ever tell him what this letter meant to you? I stayed silent, not because I didn't want to answer, but because the truth was painfully complicated, and that truth was about to come out next. I sat there holding the letter against my chest, and for a moment I forgot completely that we were filming a talk show. The cameras, the audience, the lights, none of it registered. All I could think about was Jungkook and the words he wrote when I wasn't there to hear them. Jimmy didn't rush me. He didn't try to lighten the mood or shift the conversation. He just waited, letting the silence exist without embarrassment or pressure. It was the kind of respect that didn't need words. When I finally found my voice again, it came out weak. I never told him how much this letter meant to me because I didn't know how. I wasn't hiding the tears anymore. I wasn't trying to be composed. I wasn't trying to be the flawless idol people expected. I was just me, a human being who had been hurt and who had hurt someone he loved. Jimmy nodded gently, encouraging me without speaking. I looked down at the letter again, remembering the exact moment I read it for the first time. When I opened this, Jungkook was already on the other side of the world filming something. We weren't talking. Not because we hated each other, but because we were both stubborn, both waiting for the other to apologize first. I took a breath that trembled. I didn't realize how much damage silence could do. People in the audience were wiping their eyes, holding their breath, feeling the emotion with me. They didn't know the details of the fight, but they knew what it meant to love someone and hurt them without meaning to. That's not a BTS story. That's a human story. I continued, speaking from the heart instead of the page. Sometimes the people closest to us are the ones we hurt the most, because they're the ones we expect to understand without words. I laughed softly through the tears, not from amusement, but from the painful irony. We're always together, but somehow we forgot to really talk. Jimmy asked, "What was the fight about?" The crowd leaned in, waiting for an explosive revelation. I shook my head slowly. It doesn't matter what started it. What mattered was how long we held on to it. That answer didn't satisfy curiosity, it disarmed it. Because drama isn't always in the cause, it's in the consequences. I looked out at the audience. They weren't watching an interview anymore. They were watching someone remember their greatest regret. I pushed him away because I was scared. I admitted. Scared of needing someone. Scared of depending on someone too much. Scared of what would happen if I let myself really care. I let out a breath that sounded like surrender. And he pushed back because he cared and didn't know how to say it. For a moment, nobody moved. It was like the whole room was frozen in the same emotion. I lifted the letter again, tracing the ink with my thumb as if it still contained warmth. After I read it, I called him. The audience held their breath. He didn't answer. A soft, heartbreaking sound came from someone in the crowd, almost like they felt the shock with me. I left a message. I said I was sorry. I said I wanted to talk. I said I needed him. My voice cracked, softer than a whisper. And for the first time in my life, I was scared that I said it too late. Jimmy leaned in, eyes filled with concern. Did Jungkook ever respond? The question hung in the air like fragile glass, the kind of question that could shatter someone if they answered wrong. I pressed my lips together, breathing through the ache in my chest. Not right away. The audience reacted softly, sharing the disappointment, the fear. And during those days, waiting for his call, I understood everything in that letter differently. I looked down at the paper again, my eyes burning. I realized that the problem wasn't the fight. The problem was that neither of us knew how to tell the other how much we cared. It wasn't just Jungkook, it was me too. I finally admitted it out loud on national television. I've always been afraid of saying I need you to anyone because needing someone means they can hurt you, but not saying it can hurt even more. A long pause followed, a pause that wasn't dramatic, just real. The kind of silence that happens when someone is searching through their memories for the moment everything changed. Then I continued. One night, I was in the dorm alone. Everyone was gone. I opened the letter again, and there was a sentence I didn't notice the first time. I missed it. Or maybe I ignored it. I unfolded the paper slowly, holding it with both hands. He wrote, "If you ever read this again, it means you're ready to talk." The audience gasped, not loudly, not exaggerated, but emotionally, because that line hit everyone deep. I nodded, feeling every beat of my heart. That sentence changed everything. It wasn't just an apology, it was a door. And I realized I had been the one afraid to walk through it. Jimmy whispered, "So what did you do?" The question came out like a thread of hope, and I answered with the truth. I bought a ticket to where he was. The room shook not physically, but emotionally. It was the last thing anyone expected. The audience looked stunned. Jimmy sat back in surprise. Even the cameras paused, as if the story had stolen control of the show. I continued softly. I didn't tell the staff. I didn't tell the members. I didn't tell anyone. I just went. The memory hit me hard, the airport, the plane, the fear, the determination. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't care about schedules or appearances or pride. I just cared about him. I looked straight into the camera, not because it was planned, but because that's where my emotions pulled me. And when I finally saw him again, my voice faded for a moment. It wasn't what I expected. The audience tensed. Every heartbeat in the room synced into the same anticipation. I inhaled slowly because the next part of the story was the moment everything changed forever. I think the hardest part of everything was not the public attention or the rumors. It wasn't the paparazzi following me or the pressure of being watched by millions of people. The hardest part was finally admitting the truth to myself. I realized that for a long time I was trying to be the Taehyung everyone wanted, not the Taehyung I truly am. I kept telling myself that I was fine, that everything was okay, but inside I was slowly breaking. I was scared that if I ever chose a different path, people would leave me. I was scared of disappointing BTS, my family, the fans, everyone who believed in me. So I hid my true feelings, and little by little, I lost myself. Every night before sleeping, I asked myself the same question: is this really my life? Or is it the life people expect me to live? I smiled in front of cameras, laughed in interviews, acted like I was strong, and then when I went home, I felt completely empty. I didn't even recognize myself anymore. That feeling is the most painful thing. When you look in the mirror and you don't know who you are, even though everyone thinks they know you. But even that wasn't the most painful part. The most painful thing was realizing that I changed myself for someone who never genuinely loved me. I tried to be perfect for them. I tried to fit their standards. I tried to prove I was good enough. And I almost married someone not because of love, but because I convinced myself that it was the right thing to do. Everyone around me thought we were perfect. Families were excited, invitations were ready, the world was waiting. But deep inside, I knew I wasn't walking toward happiness. I was walking toward destruction. It's terrifying when you know something is wrong, but you keep moving forward because you don't want to disappoint anyone. I kept ignoring my own heart to protect everyone else's feelings. And the moment I finally realized that, I broke down. It felt like everything I had been holding inside for years finally exploded. And when I finally accepted the truth, when I finally said out loud that I was not happy, my entire life changed. Not slowly, not over time, but instantly. The moment I stopped lying to myself, everything around me shifted. When I finally accepted the truth, I thought everything would get better immediately. I expected relief, I expected peace, but the first thing that happened was fear. I didn't know what would happen if people found out the wedding was canceled. I didn't know how fans would react, how the media would respond, or if my career would collapse. For the first time in my life, I had no control over anything. All I could do was choose honesty and hope that the world wouldn't destroy me for it. What surprised me the most was Jungkook. When everything was falling apart, I tried to push him away too. I felt like I didn't deserve support from anyone, including him. I told him I was fine, even though he knew I was lying. I said I needed space, and I expected him to leave me alone forever. Instead, he showed up anyway. He didn't ask questions, he didn't try to fix me, He didn't tell me what I should do. He just sat next to me in silence. And that silence was the first time in months that I felt safe. I still remember his exact words that night. He said, "Hyung, you don't have to be strong for me." And I broke. I cried in front of him, something I hadn't done in years. Every emotion I had been hiding came out. I was embarrassed, I was exhausted, and I told him everything. My fears, my doubts, my regrets. I told him that I didn't know who I was anymore. I told him I was scared of losing everyone. And do you know what he said? He told me that choosing myself doesn't mean I'm abandoning the people I love. He told me that happiness isn't selfish. He said, "Hyung, your heart matters too." And hearing that from someone who has been by my side for so many years, it hit me harder than anything. For the first time, I understood that the people who truly love me don't want me to sacrifice myself. They want me to live. That moment changed everything between us, not in a dramatic way, not like in a movie. It changed us quietly. Sometimes the biggest changes are silent. After that night, I promised myself something. I would stop living for expectations and start living for truth. I would stop pretending, stop hiding, stop forcing myself to fit into a shape that wasn't mine. I didn't know what the future would look like, but at least it would be real. For the first time in a long time, I wanted to live my own life again. After that night, I started rebuilding myself piece by piece. It wasn't fast and it wasn't easy. Some days I felt strong and some days I felt completely broken again. Healing is not a straight line. I learned that the hard way. But there was one thing that kept me going. I promised myself I would no longer abandon my own heart just to meet someone else's expectations. I promised I would stop apologizing for being human. The news about the cancelled wedding finally reached the public and everything exploded instantly. Headlines everywhere, rumors everywhere, people creating stories about what really happened. I felt like the whole world was trying to define my pain for me. But something was different this time. I didn't run, I didn't hide, I didn't change my story to make people comfortable. For the first time, I chose myself even when it hurt. And through all of that chaos, Jungkook did something I'll never forget. He sent me a letter. Not a text message, not a phone call, a handwritten letter. In a world where everything is so fast and digital, he chose something slow, personal, and real. I didn't open it right away. I think I was scared of what it would say. I put it on my desk and just stared at it for days. I didn't feel ready to face the truth inside it, but eventually I opened it. And what I read changed me forever. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't poetic, it wasn't full of fancy words. It was simple, and that's why it hit me so deeply. Jungkook wrote that no matter where life takes me, no matter what decisions I make, he will stand with me, not because I'm Taehyung from BTS, not because I'm a public figure, but because I'm Kim Taehyung. He said, I didn't need to win anything or prove anything to deserve love. He wrote that even if my world collapsed, he would be there when the dust cleared, waiting for me to start again. The moment I finished reading the letter, I cried, not from pain this time, but from relief. For the first time, I felt like someone saw me, not the idol, not the image, not the expectations, just me. And I realized something important. Real love, real friendship, real connection never asks you to destroy yourself to keep it. Real love stays when everything else falls apart. That letter saved me. It reminded me that I'm not alone in this world, even when it feels like I am. It reminded me that the people who truly care don't want perfection, they want honesty. They want the real you. And that message, it changed the direction of my entire life. After reading Jungkook's letter, something inside me finally woke up. For so long, I lived like my emotions were a burden. I thought I had to stay silent to keep everyone happy. I believed that being strong meant hiding every weakness, every fear, every insecurity. But suddenly, I understood that maybe real strength is the ability to feel everything and still keep going. I thought about how many years I spent pretending I was okay, how many moments I let slip away because I was too busy acting like someone I wasn't. And for the first time, I allowed myself to feel everything without running from it. I stopped blaming myself for being sensitive. I stopped apologizing for wanting love, support, and understanding. I learned that vulnerability isn't something to be ashamed of. It's something that keeps us human. And I realized that the people who truly love me never asked me to be perfect. They just wanted me to be honest. All those years of hiding my pain did nothing but isolate me from the people who cared about me the most. When I finally faced myself, I also faced the truth about my past relationship. I didn't hate that person, and I never will. But I finally understood that loving someone doesn't mean losing yourself. You cannot build a future with someone who only loves the version of you that benefits them. Love should feel like freedom, not a cage. If you have to sacrifice your identity, your joy, your mental health just to make a relationship work, then it isn't love. It's fear disguised as love. That realization was both painful and liberating. I let go, not because I stopped caring, but because I finally cared about myself too. I wanted to be happy again. I wanted to breathe again. I wanted to live again. And I understood that the people who are truly meant to stay in my life will never ask me to shrink to make them comfortable. After accepting all of this, I started to rebuild my life, slowly but intentionally. I began surrounding myself with people who didn't love the version of me that the world created, but the version that only a few people truly know. The version that laughs loudly, dreams fearlessly, and feels deeply. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in a very long time, I'm not afraid of it. I'm not trying to escape anymore. I'm choosing to live. And if I've learned anything from this whole journey, it's this. Love isn't supposed to take pieces of you. Love is supposed to help you find the pieces you lost. Thank you for staying with me until the end. I know this wasn't an easy story to hear. It wasn't easy for me to live it, and it definitely wasn't easy for me to say it out loud. But if you're still here right now, listening to my voice, it means more than you know. It means that I'm not alone. It means that my pain didn't go unnoticed. And sometimes that alone is enough to give someone the strength to keep going. I want you to remember something long after this video ends. No matter who you are, no matter what you do, no matter how the world sees you, your feelings are valid. You don't have to hide your hurt. You don't have to pretend you're okay just to make other people comfortable. You don't have to sacrifice who you are to earn love. The right people will love you for your truth, not for the mask you wear. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for choosing to stay. I hope the road ahead for you is filled with peace, love, and real happiness. And even if you can't see it right now, I hope you don't give up on yourself. You're worth more than you think. I'm Taehyung, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being here with me.